Welcome to the A Players Club YouTube page, where you are about to see an inside scoop of the top 1% of entrepreneurs in our industry. The format of this YouTube channel is very simple. We've held over 25 masterminds now all across the world with some of the highest level entrepreneurs in the game, and we've compiled a series of videos from our private roundtable masterminds with members doing over 100k a month, and public masterminds where we've brought specialists to speak on certain industry topics. My name is James Galligan and I am the founder of A Players, and we have decided to give you exclusive access to the live recordings of these masterminds in hope that every single one of you watching these will easily get past 1 million a year. And for those who do, you are very welcome to come work with us at A Players Club by clicking the link below. But for now, like, comment and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy the video. Peace.
Right, boys, we have about 15 minutes, I would say. What I wanted to do was bring Nick up to talk about personal branding, anything to do with the psychology of what you were listening to there during his speech. So yeah, first of all, Nick, you can come up here. We can go around and questions. So who has a question based on what?
I'd say the most interesting thing I think about you is the way you communicate is so engaging. So I'm curious like how you train that muscle, because of course like someone can post a lot of volume on content, but it's obviously, like you say, very intentional. So what are those like for you?
It's a very good question. I think when I learned intention is like silence is the most important thing. So like you need to be comfortable with being very silent and not like needing to fill everything up with any word. And I believe that when you're okay with that silence, you build confidence. And when you build confidence, you start to like package your words so much more smart without needing to just say something that doesn't add anything. Because I believe that a good speaker makes someone who can communicate with the least amount of words, the most amount of value. And what is the most amount of value? It's like you bring the point across to someone. That's it. So I think practicing silence is like truly important. Yeah.
Next question. I'm gonna stay here until it gets awkward, the silence.
There was no way I did such a good presentation.
Yes.
It's impossible.
Yep.
How do you define your personal brand?
You mean what I think about my own personal brand, or how would you?
Yeah, like for example me, I have a marketing agency, a meal prep company, I'm about to exit. I help other agencies and companies to build AI systems. So vague, but how do you define it then? Because it all is related to each other.
What are things you like to do? What do you want to naturally do on a daily basis?
Build systems, help other companies create systems for them to grow and scale.
Is that something you would want to be associated with? So if people mention your name and they represent these things,
Yeah.
would you like that or not?
Yeah.
I would say that's your brand. At least that's what it is for now. So that's like what you could represent in your content easily. Because this is the thing, bro, like people overcomplicate this so much, but what you just said is your brand. It's who you are right now, and who you grow to be is how you will expand your brand naturally. So like, I don't know if you've been following what I've done over the past like 3 years, but I've been a different person, right? I've like learned lessons, I've like made mistakes, I've learned new things, and my brand evolved, so there's no perfect answer to it. But the way you define your brand is by knowing who you truly are now, understanding things you like to naturally do, be passionate about these things, and then it's very easy to do these things constantly, and most likely you'll like to be associated with it. And instantly when you represent these things, people associate you with these things. To answer your question?
Is there anything that you don't think is worth going outside of or showing? So for example, controlling the narrative to an extent that you don't want people to know. So for example, let's say he does whatever you just said, and he's creating that day by day. What parts of his life, or what part of your life do you not want to encompass into your brand that you want to keep, I guess, either private, or you feel like it will cause brand confusion?
That's a very good point. I think one interesting thing, this is very interesting, is like, there are certain things you most likely don't want to share, but do you not want to share them because you genuinely are not interested in them, or do you not want to share them out of fear?
Well, for me specifically, it's I don't want to cause confusion. If someone lands on my profile, I don't want them to think like, what are you actually doing? Like,
I see.
that message kind of needs to be clear, or maybe that's a misconception that I have.
I genuinely believe it needs to be clear, but I also believe that you can spin in your own head so fast where you think something is reality where other people don't think about it like that. So what James said is a very good point. I think the most important thing, if you sometimes not desire to share something, you need to understand the reason why you don't want to share these things. So I don't share my family a lot in my content. And I was thinking about it, I was like, why do I not want to share my family? And it comes out of fear that I don't like to bring them in publicly. You know, it's not that I don't want to share my mom in my content of the things that I help her with and the things that I do and the way I provide, but I just don't think it's necessary because of privacy, for example, right? As an example. Another example could be, maybe I'm fearful for it. Like maybe I'm fearful of what other people would think about that situation because it comes too close, right? And that's why I think it's very important that you make decisions and understand where the decision making comes from. If it's fear, you know, because you can overcome fear or not. And that way it's going to be very easy to represent who you want to represent as a person. Because everybody here, as I said, everybody already has a personal brand. You're already your brand. That's the way you make an impression to other people.
Thanks.
Of course, man.
How does your preparation look like? So you told us like you spend 80% of your time in preparation for making content. What does it look like? I can imagine you want to tell a specific story, so you're already writing it out. How do the visuals and how deep does it go? Do you have a step-by-step plan for that, for example?
Yeah, of course. So one thing that's very interesting, right, is we have different stages to the brand. And one thing I really like is, first of all, ideation. So you need to ideate. You need to understand, like, what do you want to talk about? How do you want to represent yourself? And what am I going to talk about that my audience loves, right? Because the most important thing, if there's a difference between like building an audience and building an audience of buyers. If you want to build an audience, you can just talk whatever the fuck you like to talk about. If you want to build an audience of buyers, you need to have an eye for what they want to hear. That's the only difference. So we always ideate first, and ideate costs lots of time. After we ideate, we create strategy. So we have strategy. And the strategy is basically just getting all thoughts together and making a point out of all these thoughts. So I did a mastermind today, right? And some people maybe remind certain things and other people don't. And I tried to make the point that I tried to make today as clear as possible so people remember it. So if you think about my presentation, you most likely have certain things in your brain of, okay, he talked about this, he talked about this. The only job that I have is put all these like thoughts that you have, these millions of thoughts, into one like linear cycle so people can easily understand it. That's why I said your message needs to be very clear. So you package it, you make it clear. And then after that, you have the production process. Production process is basically editing and recording. So you record everything that you're doing and you edit it. One thing is very important. You shouldn't edit on the same day that you post. So I talked about a lot of feedback and feedback cycles and loops, right? One very important thing, I want you to edit the next day because you're in a different state of mind and the way you view your content is differently. So the easiest way to get caught into your own content, into believing what's wrong or right, is constantly being there with your head into thinking what you could do right or wrong. The best thing to do is don't look at your own content for like a fucking week. Just do nothing and then come back to it. The way you view your content at that point will be completely different compared to the way you view it every single day while you're engaging with what you're doing. So that's a very big thing. So you have two things here. You have recording and editing. I like to use, this is the thing, people always tell me, Nick, do I need to edit my videos? Or do I just need to do raw talks? So like, what is the right format to use, right? It's like, do I want to do philosophy style? Do I want to do sit down, maybe Miro board top to bottom, breaking it down? The interesting thing around this is editing is using amplifiers in your content. So as an example, if I give a presentation on stage, with a good voice, I have an extra amplifier. So it will boost that whole presentation, that stage, that presentation that you're presenting. Another thing with editing is nice music. If I'm talking here and Max clips this up and puts music under it, it's an amplifier. It's like a booster. You know when you play these video games when you were young? You like click on the boost button, you have a limited amount of coins. You constantly boost things. But the most important thing about production, if the strategy and the ideation isn't there of the content, it's the core, right? Then you can't use these amplifiers. So I really want you to think in a way where you want to build the core of what you're doing, and you can use amplifiers to make your message stronger. And the last one is data. Reiterate. I think I talked about that enough today. You need to revisit what you're doing, because the easiest learning curve in you understanding how you can grow as a person and how you can grow your content is by constantly learning from yourself and getting feedback from other people into how you can learn from yourself. And I think this is like such like an important concept, but who here reflects, who here meditates? How are you doing that when you meditate? What are you doing? What is your way of meditating?
No, I'm more into journaling. So it's more like writing your thoughts on a daily basis, thinking where you're grateful for, what you're working towards, and just random thoughts in general as well.
Nice, bro. How does that help you?
Yeah, it makes things more clear, more intention, as you already mentioned. Yeah, that's it, I think, for me.
That's super valuable. Yeah, that's super valuable. And the interesting part around that as well, like meditation, journaling is a form of meditation. You can meditate in your own way. Meditation basically just means being present. You just want to be present, because then you can just collect your thoughts sometimes. And even sometimes you'll meditate and you won't be able to collect your thoughts, which is also good. The most important thing with meditation is there doesn't need to be an outcome. You're expecting an outcome, but there doesn't need to be an outcome. The outcome is you meditating, you being present, you doing your thing. Because as you said, like it's beautiful to meditate, like journaling, and then reflect on what you could have done better. You sometimes just walk around and you're like, fuck, okay, you have that one thought that you have in your brain that's so valuable. And you kind of find that golden mine of like thinking, fuck, oh, this is how you view it, you know? And that doesn't have to be right or wrong. That's the interesting thing. It's not right or wrong. It's how you think on that moment at that second. But doing that allows you to recycle this back to the beginning. So you can re-ideate now and make it way better and make it stronger. So this is your learning curve. It's like having ad spend and then gathering data, seeing how you can improve it. This is our way of improving with content.
I have a question on the short form side of things. I think one thing that I could be better at personally as well is when it comes to short form content, I believe sometimes it can be a very low leverage time, because with reels in particular, the odds that they remember exactly what was said or they take action from a reel where they go to an unintentional place, which is the Reels tab, to learn. It's like we used to spend so much time on Reels and I was like, okay, let's scrap this. You just focus on Reels for A players. I'll just do long form content. I'll take a step back from Reels for a while. How do you know that you're not spending too much time on something that's like low leverage, like a Reel, for example? Is there a timeline to where you're like, okay, we should just like park this for now, to where it's just taking too long to get to the point of something so simple?
So I think that everything is a high leverage activity as long as you spend enough intention and time on it. So as an example, if I spend enough time on a reel, then I'll make a very good reel and that will be worth my investment. But if I don't do that and I'll spend my time on YouTube, then YouTube will give me that return on investment. Mm-hmm. So I genuinely believe it's like, how do you build a vision around your team? This is the most important thing, because I've had so many times when I'm focusing on YouTube, Instagram won't go that well. You know, and people are like, yeah, you know what, Nick, just distribute on TikTok. Like, why not? It's like an extra sword. You can just hire a VA and solve the problem. And you do it with zero intention and it doesn't work. So the easiest thing that I found with Max and Lewis as well, with my entire content team, is instead of me, for example, focusing on one vision. So as an example, I have YouTube, I have Instagram, and I have stories. This is Reels. one thing that I really realized that was very valuable to me is when I put my attention on Reels, YouTube wouldn't work as well. And neither would stories work as well because I put my intention behind creating something fucking good and it costs so much time. Now, when I put my focus on YouTube, like I didn't post Reels for like 3 weeks maybe, which is a really, really big bottleneck. So you're like, you know what? Yeah, let me just hire a team. Let me just find a creative director and editors and they'll solve the problem for me. But what the very interesting part is, what I got trapped into is if I create a reel and I'm not involved into the process of Reels, my editor cuts out Reels, right? Then my editor decides the trajectory of my brand because he decides out of 1 hour of content which clips will be repurposed into my main brand, like the Instagram. So you have to be very careful with who is going to make the decision of what is going to be posted, because where is an editor for? Right now, most likely, if an editor does cuts, he does strategy work. That's nothing to do with just making things look better and using these amplifiers of what we talked about before in the other slide. So your editor doesn't need to choose which parts, need to be cut out of a reel. Because when that happens, and that's normal, you guys all think, so did I, we all think that when you have this duration, 1 hour, the editor just cuts out these parts and make this look good. The problem with this is this is one of the most valuable parts that decide your brand. So you're expecting a $500 per month VA, editor, whatever, from anywhere, to build your brand by picking out these topics. And when I got into this problem, like I really started to create reels that I didn't like. I started to follow something. I started to create YouTube videos that didn't serve a true purpose because they just created that. And now what I do is I create the vision around the team. So I'm on top as describe vision. So I can share this with Max and share this with Lewis so we can repurpose everything. And the most important thing is to have them with you all the time. Because you know how important it is if you're in a group with people like this, you'll just feel the energy. It's like a complete different cycle of...
Yeah, completely agreed. I think that we just have a idea, and I think that with A players, as you guys know, it's a massive thing with like in-person events. We have weekly stuff going on, we have monthly stuff going on, we have membership, we have different bits and bobs, and sometimes I think there's also cycles as well. Like I'm quite aware of that too, but there's cycles of maybe this isn't important right now, so we can create something else that when we do go to create reels with more intention, it's now worth it more. So yeah, just cycles of that, but yeah.
I think also for you specifically, if I can give you that perspective, it's very hard to sell somebody into an in-person experience because they need to get there in person as well. So people are most likely either tempted to just buy something online, even though if it's more expensive. The part that is easier is recurring, right? People would love to come back if they like the experience. With something online that's very difficult, you're not going to resell people the same information. And I think like content-wise, what people engage with really is just genuinely sharing the experience of not what is happening, because there's enough information, but the experience of seeing the guys together, and also the people you represent is the people you attract.
I think one of the biggest takeaways we can all take from that is the fact that an editor is not cutting, they're strategizing. I think that's a very good point. Because it's true, sometimes you have a really good piece of content and you give it to someone and you're like, well, that's not what I intended with that content. And so it's just like you're letting your strategy go in the hands of somebody who doesn't really fully understand the strategy or the vision.
That's why Max is with me all the time, so he understands my brain, he understands how I move, what for decisions I want to make. And when we have long form, he cuts it and then the editor polishes it. But the cuts is in your mind, it's just like clicking, whatever button on CapCut or whatever it is.
Control C or something.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll open up for like one more question, or you can ask after. Good boy. I'm joking, Carlos.
Nick, yourself and myself had a chat earlier on, and I asked you a question, what is it that you look for in a creative director? And you said vision. What is a trait that you would have to see from himself to showcase that he understands your vision?
Hard work, I'll explain why. So when the only moment people would genuinely want to work very hard for you is if they see the vision. Otherwise, there's no point to work hard. Like, why would you work over hours if you don't need to, right? The only moment they genuinely want to work very hard, like Max is working like 12 hours a day, if not more, because he believes in the vision of where we're getting with the company. So the vision is main, and then you'll see how people respond to that vision, right? Because everybody has their own personal characteristic and trait and values. So I think what's very important is hard work, because like talent and skill, it can all be learned. Like if you're around me and Max for 2 weeks, you'll be creative. So it's like, you don't look for talent and skill, in my opinion, especially not skill. Talent is maybe different, but it can be recreated very easily. You can't just get somebody to work very hard, you know? And for somebody to work very hard, you need to let them believe in the vision. Otherwise, there's no reason for them to work very hard.
Mm-hmm. We'll do one more question, then we'll go downstairs, finish off 2 speeches, and go to the game. You can ask a question then.
So I will be going back to the ideation part. Do you do any research, like formats, topics, or whatever? And do you script them after, or are you going like fully like from your brain?
Great question. So my highest leverage activity that I can do right now is reading books, meeting new valuable people, and traveling. That's my highest leverage activity. So I don't script, because I naturally learn from having conversations with people, from learning new things, from traveling, from different experiences, because that's how my mind like works. So no, I don't script specifically. And ideation-wise, I always get new ideas by looking into different niches. I don't look into my own niche. The only reason why I believe I dominate my niche is because I don't look into my own niche. I take things from different markets and I apply that to my own. And we, as I said, we spend so much time on ideating, which is why I think also people know that I always invent and I create new shit. So because we spend so much time on it, like.
Thanks.
Yeah, amazing boys. Round of applause for Nick.